It's been 200 years since the world's first railway journey.
Since then, we've had steam trains, overnight sleepers and high-speed rail reaching 300 miles per hour. With the railway, the world opened up. Victorian families took holidays to the coast. Seasonal produce from rural farms filled urban markets within hours. People began commuting to work and suburbs sprang up around new stations. And by the early 20th century, you could board a train in London and reach Paris, Berlin, Vienna, even Constantinople. The world as we know it may not have existed without the trains.
This is the gorgeous Yorkshire coastal town of Scarborough. It wasn't where the railway began, but it shows what the railway did for towns across Britain. When the line from York opened in 1845, Scarborough was suddenly connected to mass tourism.
We developed the concept of going on holiday to the seaside.
The demand for easier movement between the clifftop hotels and the beach soon led to the invention of a new type of railway, the funicular.
It was so successful, this cliff lift, that they went on to build 5 in Scarborough.
These cliff lifts made the town accessible, helped Scarborough remain popular when other resorts declined, and 2 are still in operation today, one celebrating its 150th birthday in 2025. Today, I'm going to take a ride on Scarborough's funiculars.
This town has surprised me actually.
And with the help of local expert Adrian, learn more about them.
I have made it to Scarborough. I'm standing outside of Scarborough Station now, and on the 7th of July 1845 the York to Scarborough line was opened. This meant that the seaside town of Scarborough, which previously could only be reached by horse and cart, was now opened up to mass tourism. The face of Scarborough would change forever. But Scarborough had a few challenges to contend with. With the sudden influx of tourism, more people were wanting to travel down from the top of the cliffs, where a lot of the hotels and infrastructure were, to the beach. But the cliffs were very steep, and relying on horse and cart only wasn't really an option. So let's walk down to the beach and I'll show you what they came up with.
Also, let me introduce Adrian, who's going to be telling us a bit more about Scarborough and its funiculars as we explore.
Hello, my name is Adrian Perry. I'm the president of Scarborough and District Civic Society. We've got a membership of over 100 people, paid up members. We want Scarborough to be a better place than it is today. We want the absolute top high quality. And of course we want to look after our heritage as well, because we've got all these marvellous buildings around Scarborough, such as the castle and the marvellous Grand Hotel, so we've got a lot to be proud of in Scarborough.
Here we go. This is Central Tramway, which opened in 1881. It was a railway built to move crowds from the cliff to the coast in a couple of minutes. So by the late 19th century, Scarborough was packed in the summer. It's one of the hottest days of year today in the 21st century, and it's pretty busy now. But because they had the issue of the town being set high on the cliffs above the beach, they had to find a transportation solution. We'll just come out to the cliffs now so you can really visualise what the issue was. So the beach is all the way down here, and we are up here on the cliffs. And this is the case all along the Scarborough coastline. Now, the first railway had only been operating for about 20 years, but railway infrastructure and the demand for the railway was booming. People were getting here using the railway, and more people from all walks of life were starting to use this new method of transport. So what was the solution? To build railways going up and down the cliffs, of course.
The first funiculars that were used were mainly for things like defensive castles. And defensive castles, obviously, they're normally at the top of a hill, a rather steep hill, and they have to get things, provisions into the castle. And somebody, I think in Germany actually, came up with this marvellous idea of all that you need to do is you need to have a little track running up the steep hill, and then have something that you can load all your goods onto, and that will, with a counterweight, the weight at the top pushes the bottom one up. So it's a way of transporting things really up steep hills. That's fundamentally the concept, and it's all done by counterbalance. So all you do is you just increase the weight on the car that's at the top, and when it becomes heavier than the car that's at the bottom, obviously it starts to move up towards the top. Now, this was used for quite a number of years, but it had never really been used for taking passengers.
And here we have it, Victorian tramway to beach. So this was just one of 5 funiculars in Scarborough, but today only 2 remain operational. So I'll definitely be going on the 2 that I can. Hiya, just one please. 150 please. Thank you. Thank you. The tram was pretty much full and ready to go as I paid, so I was whisked straight in, and that took about 15 seconds, I'd say. So what is amazing is that the 2 that are still running are running. This one opened in 1881, and its claim to fame is that it is the oldest surviving tramway company in the UK. Now these carriages run on a 1-1 cable system, which means that one goes up and the other one goes down. The original boiler rooms have been replaced with electric winches, but the principle has not changed since 1881. I can see another funicular here that does not appear to be in operation. So I'm just going to cross over the road and go and have a look at it. This was the St Nicholas Cliff Lift. The St Nicholas Cliff Lift opened in 1929, and when it was first built there wasn't even a bottom station. Passengers used to just step directly onto the pavement here and then walk down to the beach. So this meant all of the control equipment was incorporated in the upper station and fares could only be paid there as well. And this cliff lift was always powered by electricity. However, as you can see, it is very much no longer operational. The St Nicholas Cliff Lift was closed in February 2007 as the Borough Council couldn't afford the £445,000 worth of modifications which they needed for it to conform with modern health and safety standards. It's also only a few minutes walk from the central tramway, and at the time of its closure it was operating as a loss. So when it closed, as you can see, the 2 funiculars were fixed into place there and it was kept as it was, which is quite nice, I think, that it wasn't dismantled.
When they decided that St Nicholas was going to close, the Civic Society were really upset because we wanted to keep it going, because you know that would mean that we'd got 3. But in the end we had to settle for what I think is a tremendous arrangement, because it still looks as though we have a cliff lift, but it's in fact a cafe instead. And so, and a very successful cafe. 2 cars sit up at the top station all the time, and people drink coffee and get marvellous views out over the sea.
Now I've taken the tramway back up to the top of the hill and I'm just standing next to the Grand Hotel Scarborough. Remember how I said that the railway changed the face of Scarborough and it brought people from all classes to the seaside? Well, in response, hotels had to pop up. So this hotel was built as a direct result of railway travel causing more visitors to come to the town.
The person that actually prompted this whole, shall we say, engineering feat was the owner of the hotel up at the top of the cliff. You know, so he was running his hotel. People really had quite a lot of steps to get down to the sea. I think it was about 226. Because when they first opened up the cliff lift, there was an advertising sign here that said, "For 1p you can save 226 steps."
When it was built, it was the largest brick building in Europe, which is pretty wild. And nowadays it's owned by Britannia Hotels. I think, like a lot of Britannia hotels, it's probably quite dated these days, sadly. But you can see its grand past here, and it does echo how desirable a destination Scarborough was when railway travel was born. Now I'm just walking over the Spa Bridge. This was built in 1827, so it actually predated the railway arriving here, but didn't predate the first railway journey. So I wonder if they had a hunch of what was about to happen and decided to improve the transport links in advance. Potentially. This is all the South Bay area, and then over there's the quieter North Bay. And there were a couple of funiculars in the North Bay area as well. which we're hopefully going to get the chance to go to a little bit later on in this video. So just behind me we have the Scarborough Spa cliff lift, which opened in 1875 and recently celebrated its 150th birthday. This is the oldest surviving funicular railway for passengers in the UK. So this funicular railway was the first solution to descending down the cliffs and ascending up them. As you can see, all of these buildings were really where people were staying and where a lot of the facilities, amenities of the town, but then to reach the beach and the spa, you had to get down here. So this was the solution, a funicular railway that carried visitors up and down in enclosed cars running on a cable system powered first by water weight and later electricity. So the ladies of the time could step out of a hotel in their big fancy dresses and just glide down to the sea without even touching a staircase. And as we know, by the 1880s, Scarborough had multiple cliff lifts coming, which was basically a vertical transport network designed entirely around leisure. Railway transformed cities, there's no doubt about that. But here in Scarborough, it also transformed the seaside. Hiya.
Hello. I work for Scarborough Borough Council, and my name's Alan Wilson, and I'm supervisor on the cliff lift.
This is the oldest cliff lift in the
Yes,
country.
yes.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And could you tell me a bit about the recent 150th year celebrations?
Yes, it was very, very good. It went very well. There was a brass band and such, and all entertainments in the ocean room, and everybody seemed to have a good time. Nice. And they dressed us up in Victorian outfits, which we really enjoyed.
Is it right that this lift was originally a water power?
Yes, it was powered by water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When did it convert to electric?
1935.
1935.
Yeah, yeah. It went on to, and then about 1997 it went to automatic. Used to drive it before then, but now it's all done by switches on the track.
What do you think the funiculars sort of bring to Scarborough today? Do you think they're still like an icon of the town?
Oh yeah, like a focal point really. People come just to ride on it.
Oh, I think the locals really depend on it. Mm-hmm. In fact, when they close the cliff lift, very often, you know, for maintenance or whatever, if it's in a busy time of the year, then they put on a bus service to ship people from the top down to the bottom. So, you know, it's a proper means of transport. People rely on it. It's not just for fun.
I was curious to how the water system worked back in the day, so Adrian took me to midpoint up the funicular to explain it a bit more.
Nice. So we were saying that the original building,
it
is the original building.
Yeah.
So there's a big shed here with huge pumps in it.
Yeah.
And it pumped the water up to the top.
Oh, wow.
So literally, you know, the car came down full of water, and then it would drain into a special drain down there, and then this pump would grab hold of that water and send it back to a big tank up at the top again.
Wow. So I've just walked over this headland, which Scarborough Castle is perched on top. I didn't even know Scarborough had a castle before I came here. This town has surprised me actually. It is really beautiful. And I'm just overlooking North Bay here. So this is a slightly quieter part. I think the South Bay is the main beach area.
Most of the activity was in the South Bay. When the railway came to Scarborough in 1845, that really did alter the whole structure of tourism, and in fact there was a lot of development up at the top of the cliff here, so that was heralded the development of the South Cliff.
Look at this stunning road that goes all around the headland. Must be a gorgeous drive. Anyway, funiculars, that's why we're here. So there used to be 2 funiculars in the North Bay area. However, they have both closed down and have been dismantled. So I just wanted to tell you the story of both of them. So the first one was the North Bay Cliff Lift. This was built during the 1930s. It was the only funicular that served the North Bay of Scarborough throughout the entire duration of its operation. But during 1996, it was decided to close the lift permanently rather than pay £75,000, which was a quote to deal with corrosion and other damage.
Partly to do with the change in tourism, because, you know, in the 60s, 70s, everybody that would have come to Scarborough suddenly decided that they could jump on a plane and go to Spain, and so tourism took a bit of a dive.
Now, the lift was then entirely dismantled, which is why I can't go and see it today. And it was actually sold to the Launceston Civic Society in 1998. By Launceston, I mean Launceston, Cornwall, as in the other side of the country to here. Launceston in Cornwall contacted them. For some reason, they wanted a funicular and they paid a very small amount for it. However, after it was delivered to Launceston, Launceston then decided that it had no use for it. So nowadays, most of this funicular is in storage at the Launceston Steam Railway. This is really interesting to me because that's only about an hour away from where I live in Devon. I wonder if there's any chance I could see it. Now, the second one was called Queen's Parade Cliff Lift. So this cliff lift only opened 3 years after Scarborough Spa Cliff Lift. However, disaster happened on this funicular. On its opening day, one of the carriages broke free and crashed into the other carriage. No one was hurt in this incident, but it had to close immediately and wasn't able to reopen until the following year. Once it reopened, it had a series of accidents, landslides, equipment failure, and it ended up closing just 9 years after opening. So actually, there were only ever 4 funiculars in Scarborough at any one time. Obviously, it goes without saying that both funiculars these days adhere by 21st century safety standards, so there is nothing to worry about riding them. And that pretty much concludes the story of Scarborough and its funiculars. It's been 150 years since the funiculars first opened in Scarborough, and they're such a wonderful attraction and draw to the town that I really hope that they continue. And if you're ever in the area, I definitely recommend coming to see them for yourself. So from the gorgeous Scarborough coastline, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do check out the rest of my rail series videos if you haven't already. And as I've enjoyed making this series so much, I'm going to do a few other spin-offs too. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and I hope I will see you next time. Bye!